It was one of those evenings that felt calm and ordinary, the kind that tricks you into thinking nothing bad could ever happen. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft orange light as a teenage boy named Malik Johnson drove through his quiet suburban neighborhood. He had just finished basketball practice and was humming along to a song playing low on the car radio. Sweat still clung to his shirt, and his gym bag sat on the passenger seat beside his backpack. He wasn't thinking about anything serious, just the usual thoughts of a 17-year-old, homework, friends, what to eat for dinner. He turned down Maplewood Drive, a familiar street lined with neat lawns and mailboxes that all looked the same. He liked that street. It felt safe. Then he saw the flashing lights in his rearview mirror. For a second, he thought maybe they weren't for him. He looked around, expecting the police car to pass. But it stayed behind him, lights spinning red and blue against the houses. A quiet panic rose in his chest. His mother's voice echoed in his head, words she'd repeated since he got his learner's permit. If you ever get pulled over, stay calm. Keep your hands where they can see them. Be polite. No sudden moves. He took a slow breath, pulled the car over to the curb, and turned off the engine. His hands gripped the steering wheel tight and his heart thudded like a drum. 2 officers stepped out of the patrol car. Their flashlights were already on, even though there was still daylight. Malik watched them approach in the mirrors. One stood tall and stiff, the other looked younger, uncertain. The tall one tapped on Malik's window. "License and registration," he said, his voice sharp. Malik rolled the window down halfway. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. He reached slowly for his wallet, then for the registration card in the glove box. He kept his movements slow and clear, exactly like his mother taught him. The officer took the cards and stared at them. "This your car?" "It's my mom's," Malik said. "She let me use it for practice." The officer raised a brow. "Uh-huh, and where's your mom right now?" "At work, sir." The man looked at his partner. "You run it," he said, handing over the license. The younger officer walked back to the patrol car, typing something into the computer. Malik could feel sweat forming on the back of his neck. "What did I do, sir?" he asked softly. The tall officer crossed his arms. "You got a broken taillight. And we've had reports of a car like this involved in a few incidents lately." Malik frowned, confused. "Incidents?" "I just came from school." The officer gave a small laugh that didn't sound friendly. "Uh-huh. We'll see about that." He walked around the car, peering through the windows with his flashlight. Malik sat still. His hand stayed on the steering wheel, eyes forward. He wanted to call his mom, but he remembered what she said about not making sudden moves. Inside his chest, his heart kept pounding. The younger officer came back after a minute. "Plate's clean," he said. "Registered to Denise Johnson. That your mom's name?" The tall one asked. "Yes, sir." "What's she do for work?" Malik hesitated. "She's with the government." The officer narrowed his eyes. "What part of the government?" Malik swallowed. "The FBI." That made both men pause for half a second, but the tall one quickly shrugged it off. "Everybody's mom works for the FBI these days," he said with a smirk. "Step out of the car, son." Malik's breath caught. "Sir, did I do something wrong?" "Step out of the car." He unbuckled his seatbelt and slowly pushed the door open. His legs felt shaky as he stepped onto the pavement. The air outside was cooler now, the last bit of sunset fading. The younger officer stood a few feet away, his hand resting near his holster. Malik saw that and forced himself to keep his hands raised slightly, palms open. "Put your hands on the hood," the tall officer ordered. Malik obeyed, pressing his hands against the warm metal. The roughness of the hood surprised him. The officer began to pat him down, pockets, waist, arms, while the other one circled to the back of the car. "I didn't do anything." "Sir?" Malik said quietly. "Then you got nothing to worry about," the man replied, checking the inside of his jacket. He heard the trunk pop open. The younger officer was searching through it now, moving aside the basketball and the gym bag. Malik wanted to tell him he couldn't do that without permission, but he didn't want to sound disrespectful. He remembered what his mother said about how quickly things could go wrong. As the minutes passed, a few people from nearby houses came out to watch. A woman on her porch lifted her phone and started recording. Malik saw the light of the screen and felt both embarrassed and relieved. At least someone else was seeing this. The tall officer came around to face him again. "You sure this car's not stolen?" "Yes, sir. It's my mom's. You can call her if you want." He laughed again, short and cold. "Yeah, we'll see about that." He went back to his car, talking quietly to his partner. Malik stood there, the sound of his own breathing loud in his ears. The night had turned darker, the sky now a deep blue. The flashing lights made everything look unreal. Red, blue, spilling across his face and the pavement. He thought about his mom. She was probably still at work downtown. She always told him to text her when he got home, but he hadn't had the chance yet. Should he text her now? Would they let him? He turned his head slightly toward the younger officer, who was now standing a few feet away watching him. "Sir," Malik said carefully, "can I please send a message to my mom, just to let her know what's happening?" The man hesitated. "You can call her later. Just stay still, please, sir. She'll be worried." The officer shook his head. "Just wait," Malik felt helpless. He looked down at his hands still resting on the hood. His fingers trembled slightly. He didn't understand why this was happening. He hadn't done anything wrong. He thought of all the stories his mom told him about how misunderstandings could spiral. She said even good officers could make mistakes if they acted out of fear. He didn't hate them. He was just scared of what could happen if one of them got nervous at the wrong time. The tall officer returned, looking annoyed. "You said your mom works for the FBI. You got proof of that?" Malik blinked. "Proof?" "Yeah, kid. Like an ID or a badge or something." "She has her badge," he said softly. "I don't," the officer smirked. "Right." He turned to his partner. "Maybe we should take him in until we confirm it." Malik's chest tightened. "Sir, please, I didn't do anything." The younger officer looked uneasy. "Maybe we should just call the mom. Her info's right there." The tall one frowned. "You want to call the FBI and tell them we pulled over one of their agent's kids? You know what kind of paperwork that'll be?" The younger man shrugged. "Maybe it's safer." Their quiet argument drifted toward the patrol car. Malik stood frozen. He wanted to believe it was going to be fine. But the way they looked at him didn't feel fine. It felt like they saw something dangerous instead of a kid who just wanted to go home. He wished his mom were there. She always had this calm way of fixing things, of making people listen. She told him once, power doesn't come from shouting. It comes from control. He didn't feel powerful now, but he tried to stay controlled. A few more neighbors had gathered by then. Someone whispered, "That's Denise Johnson's son." The words carried through the still air. The tall officer turned his head slightly, hearing his partner's radio crackle. "Dispatch confirms vehicle belongs to Agent Denise Johnson. Federal Bureau of Investigation," the voice said. Both officers froze for a moment. Malik didn't say a word. He just kept his hands on the hood, heart still hammering, waiting for whatever came next. The tall officer's voice was quieter now. "You can put your hands down, son." Malik slowly stepped back from the car. "Am I free to go, sir?" The officer hesitated. We'll confirm with your mother. Sit tight." The younger one looked at him with something close to guilt. "You okay?" Malik nodded, though his stomach was tight and his throat dry. He didn't feel okay. He felt small, like the world had shrunk around him. Minutes later, when they finally allowed him to sit inside the car again, he took out his phone. His hands shook as he typed a single word to his mother. Help. He didn't mean it in a dramatic way. He just needed her there. He needed her voice, her presence, her calm. The officers went back to their patrol car, whispering into their radios. Malik sat in silence, staring at the dark street ahead. The night that began so normal had turned into something he'd never forget. He didn't know that his message had already lit up his mother's phone across town, and that she was already on her way, sirens echoing in the distance. The flashing lights still bounced off the windows of the parked cars, coloring the street in blue and red. Malik sat quietly in the front seat, his phone still in his hand, staring at the message he had just sent. It was only one word, help, but it carried everything he was feeling: fear, confusion, hopelessness. He didn't know if his mom had seen it yet. She usually replied fast, even when she was in meetings, but this time the screen stayed dark. The officers were still outside talking, and every few seconds one of them would glance at him. It made him uneasy. He tried to steady his breathing the way his mom taught him when he got nervous before exams. "In through your nose, out through your mouth," she would say. He did that now, but it didn't work as well. His heart still thumped too fast. The taller officer walked back toward the car. "Step out again," he said. Malik hesitated. "Sir, I already—" "Now." He opened the door and got out slowly. The air felt colder than before. He noticed a few more neighbors outside now. Some were recording with their phones. Others just watched quietly from their porches. "Turn around," the officer said. Malik turned, his hands visible. "Why were you so nervous earlier?" "I wasn't nervous, sir. I was just what?" He swallowed hard. "Just scared." "Scared of what? You hiding something?" "No, sir. I was just scared because of how things looked." The officer studied him, his flashlight beam tracing Malik's face. "You know what looks suspicious? Someone who can't give straight answers." Malik said nothing. He just kept still. The younger officer came back from the patrol car. "No warrants, nothing." "Everything checks out," the tall one frowned. "Then why is he acting so jumpy?" "Maybe because you've had him out here for 20 minutes, the younger one muttered under his breath. Malik almost smiled, but he didn't. The older officer looked toward the trunk again. "Let's check one more time," he said, moving to the back. He popped it open, shining his light across the bags. He unzipped Malik's gym bag and found nothing but sneakers, a towel, and a water bottle. He sighed like he was annoyed there wasn't anything more interesting. "All right," he said finally. "You can relax, but don't move just yet." Malik nodded, trying to hide his frustration. His phone buzzed suddenly in his pocket. It startled everyone. The tall officer turned sharply. "What's that?" "It's my phone, sir." "Take it out slowly," Malik did. On the screen was a message from his mom. "Where are you?" "I'm coming." He let out a breath of relief without meaning to. His fingers shook as he typed back, "Maplewood Drive." "Police stopped me. Please hurry." The officer leaned in a little. "Who's that?" "My mom, sir." "What's she saying?" "She's on her way." He looked uneasy now. "Why's she coming here?" Malik looked at him directly for the first time that night. "Because she's my mom." The younger officer stepped closer. "Maybe you should let him call her." The tall one frowned but nodded. "Fine, speakerphone. Let's make sure she's really who she says she is." Malik dialed her number. His mom answered on the first ring. "Malik, are you okay?" Her voice was sharp, focused. "I'm okay," he said softly. "The police stopped me. She didn't waste time." "What's your exact location?" He looked at the street sign. "Maplewood and Pine." "Stay where you are," she said. "I'm 5 minutes away." Before he could say anything else, the officer spoke up. "Ma'am, this is Officer Blake from the local precinct. We have your son stopped for a possible traffic issue." Her tone changed immediately. "Possible? What's the reason for the stop, officer?" There was a pause. Broken taillight." "My car was serviced last week," she said firmly. "That taillight is brand new." The officer cleared his throat. "Well, we also thought the vehicle might match another description." "What description?" He didn't answer. Malik could see the younger officer shifting uncomfortably beside him. "I'll be there in 4 minutes," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Do not touch my son." The line went dead. The tall officer stared at the phone for a moment before handing it back. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. Malik sat back in the car again. The silence stretched on, only broken by the hum of distant crickets and the faint chatter of neighbors still watching. He could feel their eyes, their curiosity, their sympathy. It made him both embarrassed and thankful. The younger officer finally spoke. She sounded serious. "She's just another parent who thinks she can tell us how to do our job," the tall one muttered. "You sure about that?" The younger one asked quietly. She sounded like she knows what she's talking about. "Doesn't matter. We were doing everything by the book." Malik stared out the windshield. His hands had stopped shaking, but his stomach felt heavy. He imagined his mom driving fast, maybe flashing her badge at red lights. He knew her well enough to picture the look on her face, focused, calm, but with that quiet anger she saved for people who crossed the line. He almost felt bad for the officers. Almost. A few minutes later, the faint sound of an engine grew louder. Then an unmarked black SUV turned the corner. It slowed as it approached, headlights washing over the scene. Malik recognized it instantly. His mother's car. The officers noticed too. The tall one straightened, pretending to adjust his belt. The younger one rubbed his neck nervously. The SUV came to a stop. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Her posture was straight, her eyes sharp. She wore a dark suit and a badge clipped to her waist. She didn't shout, didn't wave her hands, but her presence alone made the street go still. Evening, officers, she said, her voice calm but firm. I'm Special Agent Denise Johnson. That's my son. The tall officer blinked, then forced a polite smile. Agent Johnson? We were just making sure everything was... She raised a hand slightly, cutting him off without a word. Her gaze swept over Malik, checking him from head to toe. Are you all right? She asked. Yes, ma'am, he said. I'm okay. She nodded once, then turned back to the officers. I'd like both your badge numbers. Ma'am, there's no need for... I said badge numbers. The younger one quickly read his out. The tall one hesitated, then did the same. She pulled out her phone, typing something as she spoke. You stopped a 17-year-old with no probable cause, searched my vehicle without consent, and attempted to intimidate him. You're both aware of what that means, correct? The taller man looked pale now. We were following procedure, Agent Johnson. Your procedure almost led to an unnecessary confrontation, she said calmly. If my son wasn't trained to stay calm, this could have ended very differently. The younger officer looked down. He didn't argue. Malik sat quietly, watching his mom handle the situation with the kind of authority that never needed volume. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply made her presence known. And it was enough. After a long silence, the tall officer finally said, You're free to go, ma'am. And, we're sorry for the inconvenience. She looked at him steadily. You're not apologizing to me. You're apologizing to him. The man hesitated, then turned toward Malik. Sorry, kid. We, got a little carried away. Malik nodded slowly. It's okay, sir. But it wasn't really okay, and everyone there knew it. His mom waited until they got back in their patrol car and drove off before she spoke again. Her voice softened. You handled yourself well, baby. I'm proud of you. He looked at her, still shaken. I didn't know what to do. You did exactly what you should have, she said. You stayed calm. You stayed alive. Those words sat heavy between them. She reached out and took his hand for a moment before letting go. Let's go home. He nodded. As they drove off, Malik looked out the window at the quiet houses. The flashing lights were gone now, but their colors still seemed burned into his memory. He felt tired, not just physically, but deep down, like something inside him had changed. He didn't hate the officers. He didn't even fully understand what had just happened. But he knew this. If his mom hadn't come when she did, things might have gone very differently. She glanced at him as they turned the corner. We'll talk about this later, she said. But tonight you're safe. That's all that matters. He nodded again, staring at the dark road ahead. He didn't realize then that this night would follow him for a long time. Not as a memory of fear, but as the beginning of something larger. Something his mother would never let the world forget. The night air felt heavy when they finally reached home. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that follows a long day. Malik stepped out of the car and just stood there for a moment in the driveway. His legs still felt shaky. The street was calm now, with only the soft buzz of a streetlight above. It was hard to believe how quickly everything had changed in just an hour. His mother walked around the car and placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's go inside, she said gently. Her voice was calm, but her eyes still carried that fire from earlier. Inside, the house felt safe. The smell of her coffee from the morning still lingered faintly. Malik dropped his bag by the door and sank into the couch. His mom went straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and handed it to him. He took it and drank slowly, his hand still trembling a little. Neither of them spoke for a minute. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was just full of everything that had happened and everything that could have happened. Finally, she sat across from him. I need you to tell me exactly what happened, she said quietly. He took a breath. I was driving home from practice. I saw the lights behind me, so I pulled over. They said I had a broken taillight. She nodded, waiting. Then they said I looked like someone they were looking for. They asked me to get out, search the car. I told them it was yours, but they didn't believe me. Her jaw tightened. Did they touch you? He shook his head. No, but one of them... He kept his hand near his gun. The other one seemed nervous, too. They just didn't trust me. She closed her eyes for a second, as if trying to steady herself. You did the right thing. You stayed calm. You followed what I taught you. I tried, he said. But I was scared. I know, she said softly. You had every right to be. The sound of the clock ticking filled the room. Malik looked down at his hands. Why did they stop me, really? Because sometimes, she said slowly, people see what they expect to see and not what's actually there. He thought about that for a moment. So they just saw someone who looked like trouble? She nodded. And they acted before asking questions. He frowned. But you work with the police, right? Don't they know better? She gave a small sigh. Most of them do. Some don't. That's why I do what I do. That's why I try to train them, teach them, remind them what fairness means. Her voice was calm, but her eyes glistened slightly. Malik hesitated. Are you going to tell them what happened? I already did, she said. Before we got home, I called their precinct. Tomorrow morning, there will be a meeting. Internal Affairs will review it. He stared at her. That fast? She nodded. That's how the system is supposed to work, when someone makes it work. He didn't fully understand, but he trusted her. She leaned forward. Listen to me carefully. What happened tonight wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't ever have to apologize for just being yourself. He nodded, though the words didn't sink in completely. After a while, she stood up. Go take a shower and get some rest, she said. We'll talk more tomorrow. He wanted to argue, to keep talking, but he could see she was tired too. So he went upstairs. The hot water helped a little, washing away the smell of sweat and fear. But when he lay in bed, sleep didn't come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the red and blue lights flashing, the officer's hand resting too close to his holster, the tightness in his own chest. Downstairs, his mom sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. The only light in the room came from the screen. She typed slowly, carefully, writing up a report of what had happened. Times, details, names, badge numbers. Her hands moved steadily, though her heart ached. She had seen situations like this before, but it was different when it was her child. She had spent her career believing she could make the system fairer. But tonight that system had looked her son in the eyes and treated him like a suspect. The next morning, Malik woke up later than usual. Sunlight filled his room. For a moment, he forgot about everything that had happened. But then he saw his phone on the nightstand, still showing his last message, help. He went downstairs and found his mom dressed for work, crisp suit, badge clipped to her belt, coffee mug in hand. You didn't sleep much, he said. She smiled faintly. Neither did you. He poured himself some cereal and sat down. The house felt quieter than usual, as if it was holding its breath. I have a meeting this morning, she said, with the chief, the watch commander, and internal affairs. They'll review the footage. They recorded everything. Yes, body cameras. Every word, every move. He nodded slowly. Are they going to get in trouble? That depends, she said. But it's not about revenge. It's about responsibility. He watched her, noticing how calm she looked even when talking about something so serious. Do you ever get tired of fighting? He asked. She gave a small smile. Every day. But I keep going because people like you need to grow up in a world that's better than this. He didn't say anything after that. He just looked at her, not just as his mom, but as someone who carried more strength than anyone he knew. When she left, the house felt too quiet again. Malik sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. Overnight, someone had uploaded the video of the stop online. It had already been shared dozens of times. He watched for a few seconds, then stopped. It made his stomach twist seeing himself like that. Scared, cornered, helpless. The comments under the video were a mix of anger and support. Some people praised his calmness. Others argued over who was right or wrong. He turned off his phone and set it aside. He didn't want to be a headline. He just wanted to be normal. Around noon, his mom called. The meeting's over, she said. How did it go? They admitted they were wrong to search the car. They'll face disciplinary review, but that's not enough. I'm going to push for new training. He could hear the determination in her voice. You're really going to change things, aren't you? I have to try, she said, because next time it might be someone else's son who doesn't get a chance to call for help. There was a long silence. Then she added softly, You did everything right last night. I know it wasn't easy. I just kept thinking about what you told me, he said. Stay calm. Stay respectful. She smiled faintly through the phone. And you did. That's what saved you. That night they ate dinner together quietly. For the first time since the incident, the tension started to fade. But something had shifted between them. Not distance, but understanding. Malik saw his mother not just as a parent, but as a protector who carried the weight of more than one world. Later, while cleaning up, he asked, Do you think those officers meant to hurt me? She thought for a moment. No, she said softly. But fear can make people do things they don't even realize. That's why we need to teach better, and not just rules, but empathy. He nodded, not sure what to say. Before bed, she stopped by his room. You know, she said, what happened last night could have broken you. But it didn't. It's going to make you stronger. And one day maybe you'll use that strength to help others. He looked at her, unsure if he believed that yet. I don't want to think about it anymore, he said. She smiled gently. That's okay. You don't have to right now. But promise me something. What? Don't let fear change who you are, he nodded. I promise. When she left, he lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the night was peaceful. But in his mind, he could still hear the echo of the sirens and see the flash of red and blue. He didn't know what the next few days would bring. Maybe more attention, maybe more questions. But he knew one thing for sure. His mother wasn't going to let this disappear quietly. And somehow, knowing that made him feel safer. Somewhere deep inside, something new began to grow. Not anger, not bitterness, but awareness. A quiet understanding that sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough, and that's why people like his mother had to keep fighting. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. The world outside moved on, but inside their house a small change had begun, one that would soon ripple far beyond just one street and one stop on a quiet night. The next few days felt different. The air in the house was still, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Malik went to school as usual, but his mind wasn't really there. Every time someone whispered in the hallway or glanced at him for too long, he knew what they were talking about. The video from that night had spread everywhere. It was on local news, shared on social media, even mentioned on morning talk shows. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some messages were kind and supportive, but others made him feel small. Everyone had an opinion, and most of them didn't even know him. He tried to ignore it, but it was hard. It felt like the whole world had seen a part of his life he didn't choose to share. The part where he was scared. The part where he wasn't in control. When he got home that afternoon, his mom was on a call in the living room. She spoke calmly, but her tone carried weight. Yes, she said into the phone. I'm aware of the media interest, but my focus is on accountability, not publicity. She noticed him standing there and gave him a small nod, signaling she'd be done soon. He dropped his backpack and waited quietly. Yes, I'll attend the community meeting tonight, she said. People need answers. When she hung up, she exhaled slowly. You okay? She asked. He shrugged. People keep talking about it. Even teachers. It's weird. I know, she said softly. But remember, people talk because they care or because they're curious. You can't control that. You can only control how you respond. He nodded, though he didn't really know how to respond to something like this. She poured herself some coffee and sat down. There's a community meeting tonight at the town hall, she said. The police chief will be there and so will I. They're calling it a listening session. He looked uneasy. Do I have to go? No, she said gently. You've already been through enough. But if you want to see how change happens, it might be good for you to hear it. He thought about it for a moment, then nodded. I'll go. That evening, the town hall was packed. Folding chairs filled the room, and people stood along the walls. Cameras from local news stations were set up in the back. Malik sat quietly beside his mom in the front row. He could feel the weight of all the eyes in the room, but his mom looked calm, composed. The police chief stepped up to the microphone first. He was an older man with kind eyes but a weary face. We're here tonight, he said, to address an incident that has deeply affected our community. We've reviewed the footage and spoken with those involved. What happened to Malik Johnson was unacceptable. A quiet murmur ran through the crowd. Malik's stomach tightened hearing his name out loud. The chief continued, We're implementing immediate retraining for our officers, focusing on de-escalation, communication, and bias awareness. We can and must do better. People clapped softly, though not everyone seemed satisfied. Then his mother was invited to speak. She stood, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the crowd. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just let the silence settle. When I got the call that night, she began, I wasn't just a federal agent. I was a mother. Her voice was steady but full of feeling. I've trained law enforcement officers for years. I've taught them how to read situations, how to stay calm under pressure, how to protect without prejudice. But none of that mattered when two officers saw my son and made assumptions. The room was silent. You could hear the faint hum of the lights above. My son did everything right, she continued. He was polite. He followed instructions. He tried to stay calm. Yet he was still treated like a suspect. That's what we have to change, not just rules, but mindsets. She paused, glancing at Malik briefly. He sat still, listening intently. We're not here to attack anyone, she said. We're here to make sure this doesn't happen again. Every parent deserves to know their child can drive home safely without fear. Every officer deserves to work in a community that trusts them. And every child deserves to be seen for who they are, not for what someone assumes they might be. A few people stood and clapped. Others wiped their eyes. Malik felt something shift inside him. Pride, maybe, mixed with relief. His mother's words carried something powerful, something that went beyond anger. It was truth spoken with calm strength. After the meeting, several people came up to thank her. Some wanted to shake Malik's hand, saying they admired his calmness that night. He smiled politely, but it still felt strange. He hadn't wanted to be brave. He had just wanted to get home. As they walked out, the chief approached them. Agent Johnson, he said, I want to personally apologize to you and your son. We're committed to learning from this, she shook his hand. I appreciate that, Chief. Let's make sure the learning turns into action. He nodded. It will. Outside, the cool night breeze felt good. Malik took a deep breath. For the first time since that night, he didn't feel scared. He felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because something had started to change. They drove home in silence for a while before he finally spoke. Mom? Yeah? When you were talking up there, everyone listened. Even the police chief. She smiled faintly. Words can move people when they come from truth. He looked out the window at the passing streetlights. I think I get that now. She reached over and squeezed his hand gently. You've got more strength than you realize, Malik. The next morning, the story was on the news again, this time showing clips from the meeting. Reporters focused on her speech, calling her the voice of calm power. Malik watched for a moment, then turned the TV off. He didn't want fame. But he understood something now. His story had become bigger than just him. That afternoon, when he went back to school, something had changed there too. A few teachers stopped him in the hallway to check how he was doing. A group of students from the debate club asked if he'd be willing to share his experience at their next meeting about youth and justice. At first, he said no. But later, he thought maybe he should. Maybe telling his story could actually help someone else. When he got home that day, his mom was sitting at the kitchen table reading emails. You look better, she said. I feel better, he admitted. That's good, he hesitated. Mom, what if I talked about it? Like at school? To other students? She looked up, her expression soft. If you're ready, then yes. Tell your story. That's how change really spreads, one conversation at a time. He smiled a little. You always know what to say. She laughed quietly. That's because I've had practice. Over the next few days, he started writing notes for what he wanted to say. He wasn't sure where to start. Should he talk about fear, or about how it felt when his mom showed up? Maybe both. He didn't want to sound angry. He wanted to sound honest. When the day finally came, he stood in front of his classmates in the school auditorium. His hands shook at first, but once he started talking, the words flowed naturally. I used to think stuff like this only happened on the news, he said, but it happened to me. And the truth is, I was scared. But I stayed calm because my mom taught me to. She always said control can save your life. The room was silent. Everyone was listening, he continued. I don't want anyone to hate the police. I just want people to understand that fear goes both ways. They were scared too. The problem is their fear had power and mine didn't. That's what has to change. When he finished, people clapped. Some stood up. His teacher gave him a small nod, proud. Malik felt a mix of relief and warmth spread through him. Later that night, his mom came into his room. I heard you did really well today, she said. He smiled. Someone recorded it? Of course, she said, laughing softly. Word travels fast, he grinned. Guess it runs in the family. She sat beside him on the edge of his bed. I'm proud of you. Not because of what happened, but because of how you turned it into something meaningful. He nodded. I just told the truth. That's all anyone can do, she said. As the night went on, they sat there quietly. both of them thinking about how much had changed in just a week. Outside, the world was still far from perfect. There would still be mistakes, still be fear, still be moments that tested them. But for now they had found a kind of peace, and in that peace, there was strength, the kind that comes when truth finally has a voice. And love finally has a place to be heard. The months that followed changed everything. Life slowly found its rhythm again, but it didn't return to what it used to be. Malik had gone from being just another student to being someone people recognized. He wasn't famous, not really, but people knew his face, his story, and what it stood for. At first it felt strange. Teachers treated him differently. Students wanted to talk to him, and sometimes strangers stopped his mother in the grocery store to thank her for speaking up. The attention wasn't something either of them had asked for, but they handled it with quiet grace. His mother kept working long hours, but now part of her job had changed. She was asked to help design new training programs for local police departments, programs that focused on empathy, communication, and cultural understanding. She didn't do it for the headlines. She did it because she wanted to make sure what happened to her son didn't happen to someone else. Some nights, she would sit at the dining table, papers spread everywhere, reading notes from meetings and listening to audio recordings. Malik would come down from his room to grab a snack and find her still awake. "You should sleep," he would tell her. "I will," she'd reply, smiling softly. "Just one more section to finish." But he knew she wouldn't sleep until she felt she had done her part. At school, things were still different. Some people avoided him, unsure what to say, while others wanted to ask endless questions about that night. Malik didn't hold it against them. He knew people were just trying to understand. But he also knew that no amount of questions could capture what it really felt like. The cold fear, the shaking hands, the silent prayers that night would end without pain. One afternoon, a teacher asked him to come speak to a class from another school. They were studying justice and social responsibility. At first he said no. He didn't want to keep reliving that moment. But his mom told him something that changed his mind. "Sometimes," she said, "our pain can be someone else's lesson. When you tell your story, you give others the courage to see differently." So he went. When he stood in front of the class, his hands trembled a little, but his voice stayed steady. "I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me," he began. "I just want people to think about how fast we judge someone we don't know." He told them about fear, about silence, about how it felt when his mom arrived that night and everything suddenly shifted. He told them what it meant to see respect appear only when power entered the room. When he finished, there was silence. Then a few students started clapping. Later, a boy came up to him and said, "My dad's a police officer. I think he needs to hear this." That small moment stayed with Malik for a long time. As weeks turned into months, Malik started volunteering with a youth mentorship program his mother helped organize. It was meant to build trust between teenagers and law enforcement officers. Every Saturday morning they met in a community center gym. There were group games, open discussions, and sometimes just shared lunches where people talked about their lives. The first few sessions were awkward. The officers didn't know how to act and the teens didn't know how to trust. But slowly things began to change. One Saturday, an older officer named Daniel shared a story. "I used to think if someone looked nervous around me, they must be hiding something," he said. "But after hearing your stories, I realized they might just be scared." The room went quiet. It wasn't easy for him to say that, and everyone knew it. After that day, the sessions felt different, softer, more honest. People laughed more, talked more, and started to see each other as humans instead of roles. Malik noticed how his mom smiled watching it happen. It was the kind of smile that came from seeing something right finally taking shape. By early summer, their community had changed in small but meaningful ways. The police department hosted open events where families could meet officers. Young people were invited to speak about their experiences. The local paper even published an article titled, "One Family's Story Sparks a Town's Renewal." When Malik read it, he felt proud, not of being in the paper, but of the journey they had taken. He realized how far they had come from that terrifying night. But deep down, he knew the journey wasn't just theirs. It belonged to everyone who had watched, learned, and grown because of it. One quiet evening, he and his mom sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky glowed with soft shades of gold and pink. He leaned back in his chair, feeling the warmth of the evening air. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked softly. His mom nodded. Every day, she said. But not the way you think. He looked over at her. What do you mean? I don't think about what went wrong, she said. I think about what we did afterward. How we turned something painful into something meaningful. That's what keeps me going. He thought about that for a while. I guess that's true. I mean, I don't like what happened, but it changed me. I see people differently now, she smiled. That's growth, son. It's not about forgetting what hurt us. It's about learning from it. They sat there quietly as the streetlights flickered on, and the world around them softened into night. A week later, Malik was invited to speak at a youth conference in the city. It was a big event with hundreds of students, teachers, and community leaders. His mom couldn't come because of work, but she helped him write his speech. When he walked onto the stage, his heart raced. The bright lights made it hard to see the crowd, but he could feel their presence. He took a deep breath and began. I used to think being brave meant not being afraid, he said, but I've learned that being brave is doing the right thing even when you're scared. That night I was scared, but I stayed calm because I knew my mom believed in me, and now I believe in me too. He talked about understanding, about listening, about how change starts when people stop shouting and start hearing each other. By the time he finished, the room stood in applause. Some people wiped tears from their eyes. Malik didn't feel like a victim anymore. He felt like a voice, one that could help others see hope where he once saw fear. When he got home that night, his mom was waiting up for him. How'd it go? She asked. He grinned. I think I did okay. I saw the live stream, she said, smiling proudly. You did more than okay, he laughed. You watched? Of course, she said. I wouldn't miss it for the world. He sat beside her on the couch, leaning against her shoulder. You know, he said, I think I want to study law, or maybe social work. Something that helps people. She looked at him with soft eyes. That sounds perfect, she said. Whatever you choose, make it something that matters to you. I will, he promised. The months turned into a year, and the story that once defined them slowly became just one part of a larger journey. Malik graduated high school with honors and a scholarship to a nearby university. His mom attended the ceremony in her sharp, dark suit, her badge tucked away but her pride shining bright. When his name was called, the crowd erupted in cheers. He walked across the stage, shaking hands with teachers, smiling at friends. And as he turned to look at his mom in the audience, their eyes met. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The noise, the crowd, the past. It was just the two of them, connected by love, strength, and everything they had survived together. Later that evening, as they celebrated with a few close friends, someone asked him what he had learned from everything that happened. He thought for a long moment before answering. I learned that fear can break you, he said, but love can rebuild you, and when you use your voice to do good, the world starts to listen. His mom smiled, and for the first time in a long while she felt peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because her son had found his purpose. That night, before going to bed, Malik stood by his window, looking out at the quiet street. The same road where his life had once almost changed forever now looked calm and safe. He whispered a quiet thank you, not just for his safety, but for the strength to keep going. And as he turned off the light and climbed into bed, he knew something for certain. The story that began with fear had ended with hope. Not every story has that kind of ending, but this one did, because a mother's courage and a son's calm had shown the world what change really looks like.